Teasing. I just told you I'd stop teasing you, and then here I go again, right?
Good evening, and welcome to the July 11, 2016 County Council meeting. We will begin our meeting tonight with an invocation from Pastor Michael Hara of the First Assembly Church of St. Peter's, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Terry Hollander. Would you all rise, please?
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see Mr. Hollander, one of my former St. Charles West teachers. Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you, God, for your unending love and your infinite wisdom, God. You blessed our nation with so much. God, we have an abundance, Lord, and we thank you for that. God, I pray tonight for this council. Lord, I pray that you would bless them individually, that you would bless their families. God, that you protect them, Lord, in the decisions that they would be making, God. And just as you gave Joseph wisdom, Lord, to hold back grain so that they had the ability to get through a famine for their nation, God, I ask you to impart that same wisdom to this council here today. God, be with them in everything that they do. God, I also ask you to please protect all of the service workers of our great county, the police officers, firefighters, teachers, most of all the citizens, God. Lord, with all the things that are going on around our country, God, I ask you to just bring peace. Peace to our county, God. Peace to our land, Jesus. Thank you, God, for the plans that you have, the opportunities that you've set before us. God, we're expecting great things. Lord, help us to be good stewards of what you've given us, Lord. And above all, God, I ask you just to bless this council. God, bless this county, Lord. Thank you for what you're doing here, Lord. You said you never leave us and you never forsake us, God. And that means, Lord, that we're headed towards good things for good days. And Jesus, we do everything in your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask the pastor if he wanted to talk about his church for a minute. We talked about that.
Sure.
Is there anything specific?
No, we just wanted to offer you to tell us a little bit about your church. You drove all the way up here and just tell us what you guys are doing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, our church has been a part of the community for many, many years, dating back to the early part of last century. But even with all that history, there's a lot of new things going on. It's a very exciting time. There's a lot of new staff that have come on board. I'm among them. So I'm specifically the worship pastor there, the music pastor. So some things that we have going on is we have a brand new outreach that we're going to be doing in the fall, where we just basically invite everybody to come in and let it be a really big family environment. So we have like rock climbing walls and games for the family, and we just want to let everybody just kind of be safe and have fun and just love one another. So that's coming up this October, or like right around Halloween time. But just all around, we kind of have a new vision for just being Jesus to our community. I think now more than ever, that's what we need. So
where are you located?
We are located off of the service road of Mid Rivers and 70, where the car dealerships are there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're amongst them. We're the old Bellman Motors.
Oh, yeah.
There. We've been there for about 6 years now. It's a beautiful building.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's an honor. And we just want to be a part of what this community has going on here. It's important to us. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Donna, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Brazel.
Here?
Councilmember Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Klinghammer. Councilmember White.
Here.
Moving on, I don't believe we have a public presentation tonight, do we? No.
No, we do not.
We're going to go right into public comments, and I want to refresh the rules so you folks, I guess, again, if you're going to speak tonight, we definitely would like you to fill out a comment card. That way, if one of us wants to reach back out to you to further the conversation, we can. 3 minutes per person. We alternate between speakers, pro and con against an item on the agenda, and then we'll hear no more than 3 for or 3 against any particular item. That being said, too, I know a lot of folks here about the McClay Mansion proposal. We, council secretaries, have made sure that every one of us have gotten every letter from you folks. We've also actually summarized the letters of all your concerns. For instance, 72 responses were concerned about traffic, and one person was concerned about a floodplain. So we've looked at this real hard. Most of us have all driven out there too. So I want you to know under your comments, this is I know it's an important thing for you folks and us. And that being said, we'll move on to public comments. So whoever is here would like to speak at public comments, please step forward now. Okay.
Members of the council, good evening. My name is Lisa Portilla. I live in the 5th District at 4325 McClay, 63304. I'm here to speak against PUD 16000002. St. Peter's just rejected a request to build a racetrack in a residential community. I say good for you to the Board of Aldermen. It was decided the racetrack would negatively impact the residents' quality of life. There were at least 2 sound studies done, and the ideal was voted down 6-1. Mr. Irwin, who requested that permit, was quoted that he wanted to be transparent and didn't want to blindside anyone. I speak for many people when I say, we got blindsided. So many people heard the same story. Powell Mansion was going to be a bed and breakfast and host tea parties and bridal showers for up to 50 people on Sunday afternoons. Then we learned the truth. St. Peter's Howell and McClay roads are already overloaded, especially at peak hours, AM and PM. I wonder what a traffic flow study would reveal. Letters were sent to homes within 1,000 feet of the center of the Powell place. Lots of us live much closer than that to the center of the property. We value our right to quiet enjoyment. What do you think a sound study would reveal for those homeowners whose property adjoins the Powell place? What about families with babies and young children? Noise till 11 o'clock? Regarding the racetrack, a woman said to her elected officials, we're here asking you, our aldermen, our mayor, our leaders to protect us. So we're here to ask you, our councilmen, our county executive, our leaders to protect us. Why should hundreds of families, which represents over 1,000 people, have to suffer so 2 people can make money in the middle of our residential neighborhood? There is no way to sugarcoat this or make it acceptable. No amount of trees, no amount of setback, no amount of time restrictions will make it less of a nightmare. Commercial is commercial. We are residential. Residential for a reason. Family. You have at least 97 letters of opposition. There are more coming. Please recognize our right to quiet enjoyment. Please support the strength and unity of our neighborhoods and our community. No to PUD 16000002. No part of it is okay. 2 people say they have a lot invested in this proposal. The county sent letters to 242 homeowners within 1,000 feet. If those homes are worth $150,000 each, that's over $36 million. And that's just within 1,000 feet. We, the residents, are the ones who have too much invested in our community to have this go forward. The 2017 Missouri operating budget's main source of revenue is individual income tax. That is paid by us, your people. Please hear us and listen. Would you vote yes to put this in your parents' backyard? Please do the right thing for your people, your neighborhoods, your community, your county. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the mansion or PUD? Okay,
Am I
then
supposed to speak now or later on when it's up for in the bill for introduction?
and you are, ma'am?
I'm Ruth Cho, it's our property.
We will have an opportunity for you to speak at the bill for introduction, okay?
She can speak now.
Do you want to speak now too? You can, but it's up to you. But if you want, Yes, ma'am?
Kathy Kerneal. I live on 4329 McClay Road.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
am, the property's right behind my home. I was here at the first meeting that we had, and we had no problems with it. Everybody keeps talking about noise, pollution, and, you know, the traffic is what it is. It's been like that since I've been living there. The Elks Lodge is right there. Same kind of song and dance on the weekends. They have parties. I mean, that goes on. We've now got new baseball fields. Loud noise goes on. I mean, it's everywhere, you know. It's just, you know, we're okay with it.
Okay.
We don't have a problem with it. Traffic's been like this forever, and they actually even widened the road. A year before we even moved in on McClay, it was just a little two-lane. There wasn't that third lane in the middle, and, you know, and they did that down on St. Peter's Howe. But, you know, the party only goes on till 11 o'clock. Showers only go on in the afternoon. I mean, I don't see what the problem is.
Okay.
And it's actually right behind my house, you know? We still have the trees and the park-like setting, none of that's gone away, and, you know, I know that our new neighbors, who, Lisa, she was just up here, I had informed her about it. She didn't even know about the first meeting, and I had let her know what was going on behind there. And I had mentioned to her about, because she had said when we were gone out of town for the second meeting, that we were against it. I was filling you in on that, telling you what was going on behind us, and I didn't think it was gonna be a big hurrah about it, you know? So, I mean, you hear the Elks Lodge, and we got the ball fields, and, you know,
Okay.
it's just somebody trying to have have their own setup, you
Okay.
know?
Okay, thank you very much. Would there someone be here who'd like to speak against the proposal? No.
My name is Richard Hillscamp. I live right in the middle of where the development's going to go. It's going to wrap around my property. We lived there for 12 years. Those ball fields, we hear that noise already. We get the lights on both sides of our house. The ball field over there hits our bedroom light, our bedroom window. The other ball field comes up next to our house. Too late, and for whatever reason, they leave the lights on all night. I ought to check into that, because that's our tax money being wasted. But the Elks Lodge, for example, it's pretty small, and it's on the far corner, well, actually on the other side of the corner from the driver's seat car dealership, but it's no comparison to a 500-person banquet hall. They say we're going to do it on Sunday afternoons, Friday nights, Saturday. Being a small business owner, it's going to expand, because the whole goal of a business is to make money. They're going to end up going every night of the week if they get a chance, every afternoon. They're not going to turn bookings down. They may start out on the weekends. They're not going to turn bookings down. If they're good business people, they're going to be running this thing every night of the week and every afternoon if they can. And as a business owner, that's what you got to do to make money. You grab the opportunities. So I'm against this, as I officially want to say, but I just want to make sure that you consider what two people want compared to what hundreds, if not thousands, who live in that area are going to have to deal with. Because it's going to mean my property value is going to go down. That's what I believe. As a residence, there's going to be a lot less people wanting to buy a house that's surrounded by a parking lot that's 50 feet from my house at its closest place. So that's just wanted to make my point, my opinion known. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the PUD 002 tonight? Ma'am, you're welcome to come forward now, or you can come to the meeting. Okay. See no one, is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor? Seeing no one else, we have one more opportunity for someone to speak in opposition to this PUD.
My name is Melissa Richardson. I live on Pines Drive, the subdivision that you can turn into and see the property from many of our neighbors' subdivisions. This approval to change the proposed location from residential to commercial is a clear case of spot zoning. For those of you not familiar with spot zoning, and I'm sure the councilmen are, spot zoning is when properties nearby are zoned differently, but the applicants receive a favorable zoning classification just because they ask for it. This map classification is for the purposes of the municipal zoning ordinance to a particular parcel of land without regards to its surrounding destinations. With every other lot located with homes in this area, they are zoned residential. This, for no good reason, to allow this to be commercial is stereotypical spot zoning. The court system concurs with this definition and has held spot zoning as an illegal. The decision of Lancaster Development Limited versus the Village of River Forest has an example stating, any change which is out of harmony with the comprehensive planning for the good of the community. Spot zoning is a public benefit if the community wishes for a change, not for the sole benefit of the property owner, as it would be in this case. We, as your community, are asking for the denial of this rezoning to this property for any proposal. In no way this will benefit your community and only cause issues with concerns we have previously voiced, such as noise, lights, traffic, sanitation, floodplain issues, increased crime potential, and more, as would allowing any commercial property in a residential area. Do not allow the financial gain of two individuals to create the financial decline of hundreds of our homes. The Standard State Zoning Enabling Act states, all such regulations should be uniform for each class and each kind of building. If you approve this change from residential to commercial, you will make the government actions inconsistent with your previous and planning actions, as the record of action has deemed it residential. We've also heard from an acquaintance that works for the street department that currently St. Peter's Howell is a grade level D, almost failing. Imagine the increased traffic flow to those streets, the need for future repairs, lights, expansion, and upkeep. Who will pay that cost? We, the taxpayers, will be expected to help maintain the property to help their business thrive. We are against this. Please hear us.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to move on now from discussing this PUD to other items on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to discuss another item on the agenda this evening? Ms. McBride?
Gentlemen of the council, I just want to let you know I am here in favor of Bill number 4361 and available if you have any questions on it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone to speak in opposition to 4361? Seeing no one, is there anyone here who would like to speak about anything else this evening? Mr. Dienoff?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council, A.C. Dienoff, public advocate and resident. I first wanted to start out by saying we all need to stop all the hatred, all the shootings, all the killings, and especially the abuse and attacks on law enforcement. I believe that we need to reach our heart out and we need to pray for the people of Dallas, Texas, the people in Baldwin, St. Louis County, Missouri, and especially St. Joseph, Missouri, which is the latest this afternoon, where a few people lost their lives. We need to reach out to our brothers and sisters in Bergen County, Michigan, where a deputy was shot, 2 bailiffs were shot, and 2 county clerks were shot. We need to stand with Barron County and do whatever we can to stop these senseless killings and these senseless attacks on our law enforcement. We all need to pray heavily. On tonight's agenda, under the Highway Department, for the past 3 years, I've asked staff to contact the City of O'Fallon with their national consortium in the purchase of salt. To my curtail, no one from staff has called O'Fallon, which I believe would result in a lesser price than $57.26 that would save taxpayers for our 400,000 residents. I am highly opposed to the Master Plan Steering Committee appointment of Michael Horibert. Unfortunately, you approved this person over my objection. He failed the people of O'Fallon and failed the Economic Development Department and our 85,000 residents in the city of O'Fallon. About a month ago, there was a police stop in St. Louis County in which he, in my opinion, abused his authority as community development director of this county and used some type of display of a badge, either authorized or given to him by the city of O'Fallon or by a county badge by the county of St. Charles. One call from one county executive to another county executive makes things disappear and go away. It's not playing by judicial rules. He should face the same judicial consequences as anybody else in America if they do something wrong. This man has failed O'Fallon, and I'm opposed to his appointment on that commission. Also, you want to appoint Michael Herbert. You want to appoint him to the Commission on Housing Assistance. I'm opposed to that appointment. Bill number 4361, isn't that putting the cart before the horse when the election is August 2nd on the collection of sewer lateral fees, which is a countywide issue to repair lateral fees? Even though I'm in favor of that proposal, the election hasn't happened until August 2nd. Bill number 4363 is reorganizing the Community Development Department, the Building Division, and Neighborhood Preservation Division. Mr. Herbert has only been on the job less than 2 weeks when he introduced this legislation before you, the County Council. I say put the brakes on and let's take a deep breath and make sure we're doing the right thing.
Wrap it up, please.
These changes that Mr. Herbert is making are going to cost taxpayers a lot of money in the 2017 budget year. Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak tonight in public comments regarding another different item that we've already heard this evening? See no one, we will move on. Is there a report tonight from the county executive, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items we removed from the consent agenda this evening?
Move to accept?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to bills for final passage. Donna, would you please read Bill 4357?
Bill number 4357, an ordinance amending the 2016 budget adopted as ordinance 15-117 by making a supplemental appropriation in the Parks and Recreation Fund budget in the amount of $100,000 for a marksman hunting simulator, and a second supplemental appropriation in the Parks and Recreation Fund budget to amend the fund balance and add personnel, operating, and capital expenses for the Daniel Boone Home acquisition, now known as Lindenwood Park.
Questions and comments regarding Bill number 4357? Seeing none?
An ordinance amending the 2016 budget adopted as ordinance 15-117 by making a supplemental appropriation in the Parks and Recreation Fund budget in the amount of $100,000 for a marksman hunting simulator, and a second supplemental appropriation in the Parks and Recreation Fund budget to amend the fund balance and add personnel, operating, and capital expenses for the Daniel Boone Home acquisition, now known as Lindenwood Park. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Klinghammer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Bill number 4357 passes, and I think at this time, too, we'll again acknowledge the generous donation of Mr. August Bush III on this item. Moving on to bills for introduction, bill number 4358.
Bill number 4358, requested by Craig Tekowski, sponsored by council as a whole, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute intergovernmental agreements with municipalities for road maintenance and repair.
Questions or comments on bill number 4358? Mr. Greifsud, this is similar to the previous ones. I kind of read through, there's very little changes to it.
Yeah, that's correct. When we met with Craig Tekowski, the minor changes were a little bit on the fee structure, but overall it's very similar to the ones that was passed several years back.
And I think this is working for the small cities now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my understanding, talking to the highway department, that the small cities and they've been working well together, and it sets that basis so they can plan for the future.
That's good, because we haven't seen any of them tonight. That's a good thing. Okay, so I think they're happy. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Goodness. Okay, moving on to bill number 4359.
Bill number 4359, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1E Single Family Residential District to COPUD Commercial Office District with a Planned Unit Development Overlay District, and R1E PUD, Single Family Residential District with a Planned Unit Development Overlay District as per application PUD 16-000002.
We're going to begin the discussion of this with a presentation from Mr. Keith Hazelwood. This here is our county counselor and our lead attorney, and I've asked him to prepare a little bit of summary for the council about their legal options regarding this PUD.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May it please the council. I'm going to give you a bit of a refresher pertaining to the notion of a planned unit development. One of you told me earlier today you've been on the council for 7 years, and this is the first time you've seen a PUD, so maybe a little background information might be helpful. And I'll try and do this as quickly as possible, but the planned unit development is a one-of-a-kind kind of a zoning process. If you look at the Unified Development Ordinance, you'll find the 13 provisions that deal with it. They start at 405.185, and it goes through 485.225. So in those 13 provisions, what you have is an effort to try to combine both the public policy of designating a zoning district. In the case before you with respect to Maclay Road, there's actually 2 zoning districts involved, R1E and CO. But what you do then is you combine with that what the law might consider some typical administrative matters, including setbacks, and you precisely design what's going to go on the face of the earth as a result of this land use process. So you end up having to review not just the zoning consideration, but you wind up looking at the site, what I'll call the site plan as well, simultaneously. If a PUD proposal is actually approved by the governing body, that then will lock in that designation, the R1E/PUD designation. It will lock in the CO PUD designation, and it'll lock in that particular use. In this case, the event center that is being proposed and the site plan that's being proposed. Now, this is a distinction to be drawn between this PUD process and the typical rezoning process is you actually have 3 stages where the plan is reviewed. Right now, we're at step 1, which is called the concept plan in section 405.220, you will find a description of this concept plan step that we're taking. And as that word would imply, we are truly dealing with a concept. The applicant comes forward with a concept that they present at P&Z. The Planning and Zoning Commission has a reaction to that. And in this case, the P&Z voted 8-1 in favor of the concept. The process then moves to the county council. And in this case, I know there are some amendments and revisions that are going to be discussed as the process goes along. So amendments can in fact be made at this stage because it is a concept plan. So you take the applicant's original concept, the staff gives their input, P&Z gives their input, and certainly the county council can give its input as well. So at the end of this first stage, then the county council would react to the proposal, the county exec would react to the proposal, and if it's a favorable reaction, you have a concept plan that's been approved, and if there's an unfavorable reaction, that stops the process. Now, I said here a minute ago, there are 3 stages to this. There is within 1 year after any approval of a concept plan, the applicant has to come in with the second review of the proposed PUD, and that's the preliminary plat and the final development plan. So if this concept plan is approved, then this applicant would have 1 year from the date of the approval to come back with this preliminary plat and final development plan. Now, our provisions get a little difficult to read, but I'm going to try and summarize them verbally. If the preliminary plat and the final development plan are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, that is an approval that does not get reviewed at the county council stage. Now, there are 2 carve-outs, though, where it does move on to the county council. If P&Z would not approve that second step, the preliminary plat and the final development plan, then that preliminary plat and final development plan will come to the county council for consideration. The second carve-out is, and here the language gets a little convoluted, if the council or board of trustees of any municipality files with the St. Charles County Registrar a certified copy of a resolution of such council or board protesting against the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission approving such preliminary plat and final development plan of any land lying within 1 1/2 miles of the limits of the incorporated area of such municipality, then that approval is deemed overruled and it comes to the county council for the county council to consider the preliminary plat and final development plan. So that's step 2. Your role in that would be dependent upon the set of circumstances that I just outlined. Now, I think I'll move us to step 3, and then I will probably say I'm finished with the formalities, but I'd certainly be glad to answer any questions. But step 3 is what's called the final plat. By this time, we've locked in the zoning designation that we want to give, and we've locked in the site plan. So the final plat comes in. It is reviewed strictly by P&Z. And actually, it's reviewed strictly by the Planning and Zoning Division within the Department of Community Development. It does not move from there. It can go to the, if it does not get the approval of the division, it can be brought before the commission. But that would be the end of the road for the final plat. It does not come to the county council. So I think with that background, I would just remind you and remind those interested parties, with this PUD, you actually are not just putting zoning on these 10 acres. You are actually putting the zoning and a designated site plan for a proposed use. So.
Mr. Klinghammer, I believe you have a question.
Yep. One of the questions that has come up related to this process isn't so much what steps that we need to take as P&Z board and our council along with the executive, but what happens to the ground after the fact, if in fact the property owners complete the plan, are open for a number of years, and then either win the lottery and move to Tahiti or decide to get out of the business. Now, we've got a piece of commercial that's been rezoned commercial, but part of a PUD. What would happen to that property if the business were to close, and what happens then?
The property is planned in accordance with the PUD. It would be sold with that plan.
Okay, and if a new owner wanted to come in and do something other than operate it as an event center, what would be the now it's zoned commercial, do they have to come back to
Yes.
to the P and Z board and go all the way through the procedures?
Step one, step two.
All right.
And depending on what they're asking for, step three.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is just because it's zoned commercial, that does not open it up for any commercial activity to come in after the fact of
Correct.
this event center.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
We would just be approving for the specified use that's
Right.
on the application currently.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Brazel?
Mr. Hazelwood, in the event that this doesn't pass and the property, they cannot continue with what their business plan is, other uses for this property, it's contiguous to commercial, I noticed. There's a Quick Trip or a Huck's or something right there.
I actually think there's
So
some
this would be a
industrial quotes.
transitional zoning piece when it's not just contiguous with commercial. So it would be something that would be subject to possibly apartments or multifamily.
Well, it'd be R1E. The current zoning on this property is R1E, so it would be subject to being laid out as 7,000 square foot residential, detached, single-family lots.
It'd be 7,000 square foot lots?
Yes.
And/or request a zoning change for multifamily living for apartments because it's contiguous with commercial, so
Yeah,
it would be transitional.
Yeah, that would be the kind of zoning process you're more accustomed to. If this is your first PUD in 7 years, what you've been dealing with in years past is the more traditional rezoning. And to get to the point where you'd have multifamily there, it'd have to be a traditional rezoning.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But under current zoning, there could be as many as single-family houses on this. If I'm basically,
Yeah, I mean, if you,
7,000 square foot, so that's 6 per acre, it's 10 acres?
Probably 5. I mean,
so-
there's some people in the audience who
Right.
can answer that question better than I can, but my observation was you lose probably 15% to infrastructure, and the other 85% gets turned into usable lots, so.
Any other questions from the council for Mr. Hazelwood? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, you're
Appreciate
welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate the legal lesson. Okay. Next, I thought it would be good to ask Robert Myers to come forward. Mr. Myers, if you'd please come up. I'd like you to re-enumerate the concerns that planning and zoning staff had regarding this application. I believe in your report, it was like 6 different items you had concerns with.
Right. We wrote a staff recommendation going to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and our recommendation was for denial based on the plan that we had at the time, but we also recognized that the project has some real merit and some real possibilities, but in order to be a good neighbor, we would recommend, in order to change our recommendation to approval, that it conform to these 6 recommendations. And again, these were just recommendations that we wanted to share with people. After we wrote the 6 recommendations, they submitted a revised drawing that meets 5 of those 6 recommendations. And so I think what we're left with is that I'm not sure what to call it, but the banquet center, I'll call it, would be at least 200 feet from neighboring residential properties. And so what that would mean would be, in terms of distance, let me show you a map or drawing. Hopefully this is not upside down. We'll find out. If you could turn on the overhead, please.
There it is.
Okay. Well, it's pulling a little bit, but those blue lines represent 200-foot distance from neighboring properties. So it would be possible to do a 200-foot distance in the middle. It would also limit where the building could go, I do have to admit. But it would be at least physically possible for somewhere in the middle of the property. Now, I know the applicant has some concerns about where this building would be located. And in speaking with her, she's indicated that she's trying to do certain things to make it a good neighbor, including some soundproofing in the walls, and she can tell you more about that. Now, having said that, sometimes getting calls from residences that are in close proximity to an assembly use, I'll call it, you do get those phone calls and you do have to worry about peace disturbance and things like that. So I do think that the 200-foot minimum distance would go a long way to help that.
Questions of Mr. Myers from
Chairman?
anyone here? Yes, sir.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How did you come up with 200 feet?
200 feet, that is actually, there's no magic in that number. It's just a buffer distance that we came up with as a
There's some other
recommendation.
ordinances that require 200 feet between commercial and residential structures or anything?
No, it's really more of a judgment call, about
Okay.
200 feet, so.
That's fine. Why the 200 feet from Hucks? Is there any reason that you would want to have to be 200 feet from a commercial?
It really needs to be 200 feet from residential, I think. That's more
Yeah, so
important.
that 200 feet from Hucks would give them a whole lot more room to work with, right? If you took it out.
Right, that's
Okay.
right. Yep. Yeah, we said at least 200 feet from all neighboring residences, but I think what we meant by that was 200 feet from the property lines, from residential properties.
You get 200 feet from Hucks.
Yeah, please ignore that one from
Just
from
ignore
Hucks.
that one.
Sorry.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Mr. Myers, of the 6, you mentioned obviously the building. Some of the other ones that have been changed, or give me a couple of examples of those, please.
Right. Probably the most important in my mind is if you look at Exhibit B, they've realigned the driveway to across the street from the street to the south, so you don't have that dogleg intersection. Because otherwise, if the driveway doesn't line up with the street to the south across McClay, you could have people doing this, trying to get across the roadway. To me, that's the most important one. But they're also, they made that entrance one-way coming from McClay. If it's going to remain just one-way entrance and driveway, we're recommending that they can keep it at a certain width, but if they want to make it two-way, they should make it, wider.
And there was also a recommendation about shrubbery,
Right.
berms, whatever, however would you explain that?
Right. Now, what they're showing is, in their drawing that's before you, Exhibit B, a 25-foot, and I'll read off here, 25-foot building setback and landscape buffer. So at this stage, since it's a concept plan, they didn't really go into what that buffer entails, but we've recommended in here what that could entail. And really, they're going to, should this get approved at this stage, the concept plan, it needs to come back in more details to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think at that time they would address things like buffers and whether it be a berm or not. What's the buffer going to entail? Does it include a fence and landscaping? Those sorts of details I think people will be interested in.
I have something I'd like to get clarified here.
Okay.
Planning and zoning, when they approved this, did they approve the plan with no recommendations or with 5 of the 6 recommendations that staff had recommended?
They did not mention any recommendation or any stipulations or conditions in their
Well,
approval.
did the plan that they voted on, did that have 5 of the 6 recommendations on it?
Yes.
I think that's something Mr. Hazel would want to make note of, okay? So basically, the 5 of the 6 conditions that staff recommended, that was on the plan that staff approved.
Yes.
We were thinking that was not, okay?
It was. The one that wasn't addressed in their motion was the 200-foot recommendation setback.
Dave?
Yes. I think a question came up, or a comment that this was spot zoning. I don't, based on my experience, if there's already commercial and this property abuts that, this is not spot zoning. Could you give me your opinion on that?
I wouldn't characterize it as spot zoning myself. What I would say that a plan unit development is appropriate in areas where something might be appropriate, but it depends on the details. And this is, a plan unit development is one of those times when, again, something might be appropriate, but it depends on the details. And so in this case, you get to review all the details. But I wouldn't call it spot zoning.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So looking at that map and looking at the 200-foot buffer, where they're talking about actually placing the event center,
Right.
would put it further than 200 feet away from all residential except for the Pauls and the Struckmans, if I'm correct, the folks with the pool and then the house right adjacent to that that's cut off of this map at the top.
Okay.
Would that be correct?
You know, I'd have to go back and measure.
Obviously, it's
Right.
going to be closer to those two houses.
Yeah, what they're showing on their plan right now is that it's about 80 feet away from the property line for the nearest house, which is the one with the pool in the
Right.
northwest
That's
corner.
the Struckman house, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. So it would be closer to them, it'd be closer to the Paul house, which is the one next to it. But all these other homes here, it would put it further away from them, would it not? Am I just looking at that map wrong?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I apologize.
If they put the event center where they want to put the event center,
Right.
it would put it further away from everyone else,
Oh, yes.
except for those two homes,
Right,
correct?
I think you're right, yeah.
So it would get them more than the 200-foot buffer that you're recommending if
Right.
they put it where they are, except for those two property owners.
Right.
Okay.
One other thing they're doing to address the question about land use compatibility is that they're creating Lot 2, which is a single-family residential lot. It's in brown, shown in brown on that Exhibit B, and that would remain single-family residential. And that would be close to the, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9 houses would adjoin that area that's slated for future single-family residential. And that's how they're intending to address some of the issues about land use conflicts.
Okay.
If I'm reading the staff report correctly, with the original plan that they submitted, they're saying the banquet hall be located relatively near the property boundary, about 110 feet from the nearest house.
Mhm.
So as the plan was, Ms. Choate has brought forth, there's 110 feet from the nearest house. What is a normal setback on any type of commercial development to a residential area? It's less than 110, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
50?
They can, there can be a setback as small or as narrow as 25 feet sometimes to the edge of the property boundary.
So 110, did get back to Mr. Elman's comments, 110 feet is further than we normally have.
That's right.
Distances anyway. 200, that's just a number you all came up with, I guess.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
There's no magic to that 200 feet.
Any other questions for Mr. Meyer?
Dr. Robert,
Okay.
I'd like to talk to the owner.
Yes, it was just, good. Okay, thank you, Robert.
Sure.
We appreciate your insight.
You bet.
Next, I think we'd like to talk to Ms. Choate, okay?
Thank you so much for hearing me this evening. I appreciate that. My name is Ruth Choate, and my fiance and myself, Mike Stanford, purchased the property 3 years ago, June 26, 2013. So we have been working on this project for 3 years now. And we've always been very upfront and very open and honest with every neighbor that we have that has come to us or that we've actually met. So they all knew that we always wanted to make this an event center. Our main primary objective always was to open the historic home to the general public. The house on the property was built by the Cottle family that formed Cottleville. It's a 192-year-old home, and I would like to say that we returned it to its former glory, but I'm pretty sure that it has never been this glorious, even in its past 192 years. So we've brought it back to something that probably, more beautiful than it ever was. But that was our primary objective, was to save this house and to save the green space all around it. That is pretty much why I withdrew the commercial application in the very first planning and zoning meeting, because we never wanted it to be all 10 acres of commercial property. We wanted this to be green space like it's been for as long as it's been green space. All the woods and all the planting and all the stone house and the guest house, and there's a 192-year-old barn on the property. We wanted to save all of that. So we did renovate this historic home with no taxpayer money, with all of our own money. And we've created a park-like setting for all of our neighbors and the entire community. And many people have told me that it looks better. People that have lived on this road for 20 plus years, they've said they've never seen it look this beautiful. So that was our number one concern. But yes, seeing as we want to open this to the general public, it does cost money to have a historic home, to maintain a historic home. So we want to be able to have a way that we can have a business to make money to continue to have this home open to the community. We do want to have many different kinds of events. There's been so much talk about 500 people, 500 people, 500 people. I apologize that if that's scaring anybody. The national average for a wedding is right around 200 people, but who's to say there could be 50 people, there could be 500. It will be large enough to have 500 people. How often have any of us ever been to a 500-person wedding? I don't know. I've never been, but it's going to be possible. So we would like to have, even council luncheons there or, whatever else we can have, baby showers and bridal showers. Yes, we will have that. I just had one for a family member Sunday, and not one single neighbor, thought that there was craziness going on there or anything like that. It's bridal shower and a baby shower, family reunions, and even grief sessions like for Bowie. They've talked about it's not the space for an event center. They've had an event center directly across the street from where our property is. The Elks Lodge has been there for more than 50 years, and they've always had wedding receptions, and they still, to this day, have mouse races and all kinds of different events where they serve alcohol 2 to 3 nights a week there, and then they also have wedding receptions. So it's right there, right directly across the street from us. There's a duplex house, and then right behind them is the parking lot in the Elks Lodge. So it is right there in the neighborhood and always has been. The biggest thing that Robert was talking about is we did meet we met 5 of the 6 requirements prior to the PUD planning and zoning meeting. So the last one is where the event barn sits. And I understand that that planning and zoning has said that it might be better if it was 200 feet. Bax Engineering has done the measurements, and there is a place right in the middle, but it's not really very feasible of where that 200 foot barrier is. Right now, where we want to put it, the Struckmans and the Pauls are the closest. The Struckmans' property line is 89 feet from the building. Their house is 120 feet. And the Pauls, their property line is 59 feet, and to their house is 115 feet. So those are the 2 closest neighbors. And Scott Paul is in favor of our plan and does not want a fence. He wants a berm and a vegetative structure. And there still is a very large expanse of green space in that 89-foot section behind where we want to put the event barn and where the Struckmans live. And we are willing to put up a fence and a vegetative barrier or anything else. But our number one thing with the event barn is it will be made of timber frames and SIPS panels. And SIPS panels are styrofoam insulated panels that are glued together in between boards, and that glue and that styrofoam basically make the building as soundproof as you can make a building. And on top of that, that entire length of the barn that faces towards the Struckmans is all storage space. The whole entire length of it is storage space. So not only do you have the buffer of the SIPS panels and the glued boards where it takes out any sound vibrations that can go through walls, then you have another barrier of all storage. So I think that would be our very best buffering for the Struckmans. And if we move that barn away from where we're talking about putting it, then the Struckmans and Scott Paul have line of sight to our guests, and our guests will have line of sight to them. So if we leave it there, that's the best barrier that we could possibly give either one of those two. And then as far as the through the woods in the front of the property on Maclay, that's all remaining residential property. That's also where we're wanting to build our own residence. Through those woods, it's over 300 feet away from where the event barn would be. So it actually is plus 300 feet. So that's a pretty far distance from where this actual event space will be to any of the homes on Maclay Road. And then there's no homes on Maclay Road down towards Hucks. That's all. That's a second additional. We're going to turn that, keep that as residential, but we have no plans to build on that property. So as far as planning and zoning's recommendation, we are still completely open. If there's other ideas that someone has to make us a better neighbor, we are 100% all for it. And my number one thing that I would like to say to anyone in this room that still has a question about the rezoning, we are here to save this historic home, to create a community event center, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that if they're not in favor of the rezoning, that they make sure that they know what they are in favor of. Thanks.
Questions?
I got a question. They made a comment, somebody, about 11 o'clock. Did you agree that you would?
I think that's what everybody thought, 11 o'clock is the
11
latest.
o'clock for music or 11 o'clock to close?
11 o'clock to close.
Okay.
I would like to say one other thing about that, if I may. Most of us have been to weddings in the past, and I think most weddings run about the same. And if they are having a wedding on Friday or Saturday night, it's the wedding, which is a reverent ceremony with maybe string quartet and harps or maybe organ-type music or whatever to walk down the aisle. It's very quiet. It's not a loud thing. And then there's the dinner, which is not quiet and loud, not quiet, but dinner and dancing and drinking, yes, for maybe 2, max 3 hours. So that's the usual way that a wedding goes. But bridal and baby showers and luncheons and and family reunions aren't usually, that crazy that I think that people need to worry too much about that.
Mr. Hollander.
Yes, I think the first thing is, this number that keeps popping up, the 500. The proposed building is, I believe, 120 by 60, okay? And that would be including the storage space that you were referring to.
I'm not positive if that's it. Yeah, they have it on there now as including the storage space, yes.
Okay. And again, you cited that the normal wedding, and again, people that know me, I'm related to a huge number of people. And, Lord knows how many weddings.
Have you been to a 500-person wedding?
That's what I was just going to comment on.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
I've probably been to more weddings than anyone can imagine, and I've never been to a 500-person wedding. And I've been to a lot of fairly large ones. But my point that I'm trying to make here is if this truly is going to be a wedding venue, I think that two things come up. Number one, the actual number of people at a normal wedding. And then number two, I also was looking at the parking. And what are your thoughts on the number of parking spaces and how that's going to be configured?
Right now, I think there's 164 parking spaces on this map, but we're open to suggestions if they're, and I'm only going by what I've been told so far, because I've actually been a couple of different stories. Like, at first I heard it was you need 1 parking space for every 2.5 people. That was the first thing I heard, but I don't know. I mean, that's probably a question for Larry from Bax Engineering or even from Community Development. I'm not exactly sure, but right now on this plan, I think it's showing right around 160 or something like that parking spaces. But we're open to suggestions on the parking space. It's been possibly suggested that we, instead of one way in through Maclay and only out through St. Peter's Hall, that St. Peter's Hall be available to be in and out, but they cannot enter back through by the Stone House. They would just drop off at the Stone House and go out through St. Peter's Hall. But we're open for any suggestions on that too.
Just a comment, has the fire department looked at these plans yet?
There's been some talk about the fire department. That's why we put that road, if you can see, that goes back behind the handicap spots, and it goes to the back of the building. That will be not only for the catering, but also for access for the fire trucks to, if necessary, to have complete access directly right to the building. But
Any
other than
other-
that, nothing else on the fire department.
Any other questions, Ms. Choate? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hollander? Mr. Hollander, is there anything else you'd like to add to this? Are we ready to move on to the next item?
I really think that the people that are concerned about the project have done a great job of communicating with us. Number one, 7 years I've been on the council, this is the first time I believe that almost every single council member has actually visited the property that is under discussion. And one thing I wanted to assure everyone is that the amount of concern, the amount of attention that has been paid to the proposals, people that are obviously for it and the people that are against. We've used this last week or 2 weeks as kind of a fact-finding thing, and I believe, to my knowledge, I think most of the council had most of their questions answered. Now it's at this point, it's a matter of decision-making. But we're certainly open, as Mrs. Choate mentioned, to any other suggestions or possibilities that either side would like to bring up.
Very good. Okay, I think we're going to put this one to rest for now for 2 weeks, and we'll move on to bill number 4360.
Bill number 4360, request by Michael Herbert, sponsored by John White. An ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1A, Single-Family Residential District, 1 acre minimum lot size, to R1B, Single-Family Residential District, 20,000 square foot minimum lot size, as per application RZ 16-000009.
Is the lady with Mr. Goss's office here this evening? Yes, would you just briefly explain this to council, please? Yes, please.
All right. We have the property which used to have Max Swindle's home on it, located pretty much in the center of what is going to be the Bluffs at Windcastle subdivision. The property surrounding the Swindle property is all zoned as, is it 1B? As 1B. The Swindle property is currently zoned as 1A. We would like to have the zoning changed to 1B, and then we will split the 3 acres of Swindle property into two 1.75 acre lots or so. It would be consistent with the rest of the subdivision.
And so basically, it's just being an extension onto the existing subdivision, I think Windcastle, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Marketed the same covenants would apply, everything like that?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments from council? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Feel free to come more often instead of your partner.
Okay. Okay, I won't touch that one, okay? Okay, moving on then to Bill 43, I think if you've already read 4360, we move on to 4361.
Bill number 4361, request by Michelle McBride, sponsored by Joe Cronin, an ordinance authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Duckett Creek Sewer District for collection of sewer lateral repair fees.
Questions or comments regarding Bill 4361? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. McBride, for coming to speak for this, too. Moving on to Bill 4362.
Bill number 4362, request by John Greisu, sponsored by council as a whole, an ordinance authorizing execution of supplement number 1 to the first amended intergovernmental agreement between the City of St. Peters and St. Charles County for the management of the Gateway Green Light Program, St. Charles County.
Questions or comments on Bill number 4362? Hearing none, we move on to Bill 4363.
Bill number 4363, requested by Mike Hurlbert and Steve Ellman, sponsored by council as a whole. An ordinance reorganizing the Community Development Department Building Division and Neighborhood Preservation Division by repealing the current Chapter 132 in its entirety, enacting a new Chapter 132 ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, OSCCMO, amending the 2016 budget adopted by ordinance 115-117 for positions within the St. Charles County Community Development Department and amending section 115.710 OSCCMO.
Questions or comments on Bill 4363? Hearing none. The only table bill we have is Bill 4352, and that is going to remain table in my district for now. The applicant and county staff are working out the terms of bringing that forward, so that'll stay tabled. For our announcements and miscellaneous, I would just like to say one comment. A few years ago, people started thanking military for serving. And you go in an airport, you see all those folks from Fort Leonard Wood, and you see people come up and say, thank you for serving. I'd like to at least have the people that are in this audience and that are listening to us at home think about doing the same thing to the police officers that serve us every day. It's been a tough time to be a police officer in the last few weeks, and they are here to protect and serve us. So next time you see a police officer in your neighborhood or you see one out at a social event or wherever, thank them for serving, because we need them, okay? Okay. And with that being said, take a motion to adjourn.
I actually would like to say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
So Jack Gamble got married. And I would like to say congratulations to Jack and his new bride, and I wish them all the very best and happiness. So he does a great job for making sure that we're on. So.
Yes, sir.
Didn't have an opportunity to acknowledge, but I want to thank Mr. Gross with the Duckett Creek Sewer District for coming down tonight.
Good to have you back. Oh, good to see you.
Fortunately, you didn't have to get up and talk.
Yeah.
It's been a few hours.
Yes,
Can I say something in regards about the police?
Yes.
I went to St. Charles Police Department before I came here tonight with a platter of cookies, and the young man was so tickled, you know. And I said, I hope I don't have to come back tomorrow, but God bless America.
Yes, thank you. Okay, motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was, thanks to Mr. Hammond, I was going to say how surprised I was you didn't have any questions for Mr. Gross. I thought, sure, you'd want to get him up there and grill him on this thing, so I'm sure that he's very, very thankful that you did not.
I didn't recognize him with his new haircut.
Well, I thought surely somebody would say something about that. I didn't want to.
He was sitting behind Bob. I didn't see him, and I didn't see him stride in with his normal cowboy hat either, so.
Yeah. Okay. And I just want to also welcome Mr. Greifsue. He's no longer a backbencher. He's up here on the hot seat with everybody else, so.
Yeah.
Welcome
John,
aboard.
Congratulations.
Yep, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none.